Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening to you. WeatherBrains episode number 809. 809 shows. Who'd have thunk it when we started this back in 2006? This is for Monday, the 19th of July. And this is the pre-show. The pre-show, that magical, marvelous, amazing time of the program where we do three things. We share very boring personal stories, occasionally humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. So this we're a little early tonight. I'm typically coming in here on two wheels and getting everything kind of set at the last minute, but Bill wanted me to open it up a little early tonight to be sure that our guest is good to go. And last week on the pre-show, I said that our guest last week was going to be Bill Curtis. And as it turns out, it's actually tonight. I was a week off. Bill is a legendary Chicago news anchor. He worked for CBS News for a long time, and he is the voice of the movie Anchorman, the narrator, which is slightly awesome. So, yeah, that's the situation here. So anyway, this is where we kind of get everybody online. So let me get my guest on here. And we are going to make this thing fly. We've had some flooding here. I've been working a flash flood situation, which is makes for a very interesting evening. I think Bill Murray's home flooded again. Where Bill lives, they had almost 2 inches of rain this evening on top of 1 inch of rain this morning. And where I live, I live up on a ridge, thank goodness. So all the water, flows down to the folks that live down below. But anyway, we have had the wet, mild summer, while our friends out west have had the hot and dry summer with this pattern. Evidence that the pattern might flip a little bit next week. I think people around here are getting kind of cranky. They've had enough summer rain. That was a great song, Summer Rain by Johnny Rivers. I'm probably the only guy old enough to remember that song. Summer, I would play it, but they'll kick us off YouTube. You know how it goes. So I'm not going to do that. It used to have kind of 30 seconds of fair use where I could kind of slip in, a little bit of a song here, like Galveston, While I watch the cannons. But a Rick roll. No, we can't do that. Their algorithms have gotten very tight with the playing the songs. So we don't do that anymore. But anyway, Bill Curtis is going to join us. That's kind of cool. Hopefully we'll get him on here. And I think Bill Murray is in Washington, D.C. Let me be sure he got the invite, because he's the guy that really needs to get on here, because the way it works, Bill gets the guests on. Once Bill is on here, then he invites the guests into the show here. So we'll try that one more time. But yeah, for those that are new here, if you're here to get the actual content, move the slider over about 8 minutes from here. And that's where the show starts. And this part does not go on the audio version, which most people consume. They most people listen, they don't watch. But there are some faithful people that do watch, and we thank you for doing that. We started the video side of this, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And we did that because, Mr. Curtis, how are you? Can you hear us okay?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Curtis, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
You're good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, and you see you've got Ron Burgundy right here with you.
He's kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal.
His home smells of rich mahogany. No, he has many leather-bound books.
You get the whole thing. Am I hot to you?
You look just fine. Video looks good.
Overexposed?
No, it looks good.
Okay, good.
Hello, Mr. Curtis.
How are you? How are you?
An honor to speak with you.
And to Ron in the back there, just say hello.
Bill, Troy Kimmel here. I'm one of your biggest fans, and I'll tell you, it comes because of what y'all do on the Decades Network every night at 8 o'clock Eastern time. I think it's one of the most innovative shows. It shows what can be done with journalism when you try, which is not a lot of what we see nowadays. And I'm a big fan of cable cutting and picking up local stations like Decades. I think y'all do an amazing job.
Well, thank you. You know, we worked on that 6 years, 600 shows.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you say, well, you only need 365, you know, to have a day every day in history, but you want to go back again and get an update.
Well, I'm going to tell you during the show, I'm going to mention that again, because I think people I'll be watching. It's an amazing thing, and I love the documentation that's done with it and so forth. So you'll get a mention during the show as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Bill, you in Chicago?
I am in our little studio up here. This is where we do Wait. Now, we don't all get in this room, but we all have a room like it.
So Bill, you wouldn't believe how many people want you to do liners for them. Do you get bombarded with requests for you to do liners for people?
I do quite a few.
Run, Bill, run.
You might want to run right now.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you've said a lot of limericks, but they're really clever. I know what I wanted to ask. How are you going to deal with this?
Toward the end, we'll talk about wait. Bill and I thought we would just have a limerick for each panelist and maybe a couple of extra ones to go around and do like you do on the show and just let them fill in the last word.
Okay.
And you be the judge, how well they did.
Oh, good.
Got one special made for Troy.
Yeah, I can imagine what that is, Bill.
But,
I won't give it away.
I'm sort of the pain in the rear end on the show, so it's like I don't know what's in store.
Well, my compliments. I mean, this is quite an undertaking.
Yes,
going for an hour and Live. My goodness,
almost 16 years, Mr. Curtis.
Really, wow.
It's all because of James. I mean, he's the
absolutely.
glue that holds us together.
Now, we started this, Bill. We needed like a creative outlet. When you do weather, it's very structured, and you're on TV for 3 minutes and radio for 40 seconds, and it's just all day. And everybody needs a creative outlet. So we started this back in 2006, and we're still here.
Well, it could be educational too. More and more people are interested in the weather. Now, WGN 5-7 here in Chicago, there's a new weather person every time I turn on the TV. They must have 5 or 6 to cover the shows. Do you notice
trying to compete with Tom Skilling?
Yeah.
That's hard.
That's right.
A lot of information.
We had
weather
Tom,
sells,
Tom
right,
on the
guys?
show.
Weather sells.
Pretty much
We
does.
hope. We hope.
Hey,
we'll,
Jen.
we'll wait.
Hi, great to see you all. Bill, it's good to talk to you again. I talked to you a few years back for
Hi,
our
Jen.
podcast. It's wonderful to meet you over the airwaves here. This is great.
Well, thanks. Yeah, my pleasure. I started in weather.
Yep.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you
2
did.
years.
And Bill, you survived
in a
it.
big way, in a big way.
You survived it, Bill.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we're going to talk about that tonight.
Yes,
Well,
we
that's good.
are.
Yeah. Barely.
But, the way
barely
just Bill, just so you'll know, we are streamed live on YouTube. We're streaming now. Most people, about 3 in 4, listen to the audio podcast version of this. About 1 in 4 watch, and so it's still a core audio show. But and we'll start here at the top of the hour at 8 Central, and we do stream it live on some local broadcast properties down here. But anyway, we're streaming right now, so don't want you to get up.
Well, you mean?
Did we lose Bill?
Uh-oh.
Satellite feeds that went from New York to Moscow. Everybody watched them, and it was the embarrassing moments. Would be a straightening, and they caught rather saying, "Now, is this all right?" I know should I turn my collar up like that? He had a raincoat, standing out a red square, and kind of embarrassing.
We don't worry about you. Some of the guests we have on this show, we're worried about them taking their pants off, or I mean, we have some interesting guests on this show, so we don't worry about you doing that.
No, not worried about Bill Curtis.
Yeah,
that's just the panelists we worry about.
That's just people that are here every week.
That's right.
All right, well, let's get this thing started. We're at the top of the hour,
sir.
so here we go. Let's record track 1 and track number 2. And here we go in 5. Let me get my right panel up. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 809. 809 episodes. Goodness gracious. This is for the 19th of July, 2021, and we are glad that you are here. And I see, Jen, you are back with us this week. Jen, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you all?
Doing fine. We've had a flash flooding down here this evening, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a little too much rain, but that's all right. Troy Kimmel, you've had any rain out in Austin, Tejas today?
Yeah, we managed to get to 97 out at Camp Mabry, 93, I think, out at Bergstrom before a thunderstorm, a fairly significant thunderstorm rolled through this afternoon, had 2 house fires caused by lightning in Austin, and about out at Bergstrom over an inch of rain in my rain gauge at what used to be my house, about a half inch or a little more. And it's gotten calm now, but we're in a more unsettled weather pattern in Central Texas now. It looks like, at least through Thursday, a chance of a daily shower or thunderstorm around, lightning risk. And then guess what? Beyond that, indications are that we dry up, and it starts for the first time in a while to look like summer around here, with highs back in the mid-90s by the time we get to the weekend, first part of next week. But a chance of rain showers and thunderstorms around through at least Wednesday into Thursday.
All right. Well, let's go to Bill Murray. Bill, let's bring in our guest. We've got kind of a big deal who's going to be on the show tonight. He's really, really kind of a big deal. He doesn't know how to say it, but he's a big deal.
Yeah, James, he really is a big deal, and one of our most legendary guests of all time. And we've already mentioned one of the other most legendary guests from Chicago too. Tom Skilling has been on a couple of times, and we've always loved having him, Bill. But there was a time before cable, when the anchorman reigned supreme, when people believed everything they heard on TV. And in Chicago, one anchorman was more believed than the rest. He would be the only man who could narrate the eponymous movie about our craft. His name, Bill Curtis. Bill, we're going to try not to have too many anchorman references tonight, but if you'll pardon us a few, it is really an honor to speak with you.
Well, the next time you say that, you might read it like this. There was a time before cable, when only men read the news. And in San Diego, that man was Ron Burgundy. He had a voice better than Sinatra. He could wear suit. And you stay classy, Bill Murray, because the anchorman is upon you. And if you don't like it, just look over my shoulder.
He's watching.
He's always watching.
So, Bill, how does it feel to have a voice that could make a Wolverine purr?
It feels great. I just hope I don't have to prove it with a Wolverine.
So, James, you're always dropping Anchorman references on us from time to time. What's your favorite line of the whole show?
Oh, there's no doubt. I'm kind of a big deal. My home smells of rich mahogany, and I have many, many leather-bound books.
Jen, you've watched your share over the show over the last day or two. I know prepping for this. What's your favorite line from?
Oh my goodness! I don't know if I watched it yesterday. I can't remember all of them. But I just couldn't remember. I can't remember all of them, but because I only seen it once before. But I forgot how funny it is.
And educational because it teaches you how to drink gin. Down to my belly.
Yeah, I think I was just more taken with his dog having the braces and the retainer and the pajamas. I mean, I thought that was great.
Baxter. Wow. Everybody in number 2 was waiting for Baxter to get drop kicked off the bridge again, but no, he didn't.
I love that outtake at the end where Jack Black kicks him and it comes back at him. I got to welcome Nate Johnson to the show. Nate, I'm glad you could join us tonight, and we're glad you're here because you're going to be taking a sabbatical for a little while. We're going to miss you, but this is a great show for you to come back for here for one last moment. What's your favorite Anchorman moment, Nate? Oh, Nate's kind of can't hear you, Nate.
Man, when the microphone's off, you're probably on mute.
Give this man a microphone.
Nate, say something.
Oh no!
He's gone.
He just hung up. He just hung up on us. How does this happen? All I can say is milk was a bad choice.
Yeah. that was L's pick right there.
Do you know the interesting thing about Anchorman is that every once a year at some date, the TV stations in San Diego invite me to come out, and not for an interview, not for anything else. They just want me to say, "You stay classy, San Diego."
I like when the news director is giving them a talking to about the anchor the co-anchor that's arriving, and he looks at Ron Burgundy and says, "Are you paying attention to this, Ron?" He says, "No."
Well, this pertains to you, Ron.
And when he said something at dinner, and Christina Applegate disagreed with him. Or said he was wrong, that he was just wrong. He said, we'll just have to agree to disagree. Nate, now we've got you back, Nate. Can you hear us?
Let's see if this actually works this time.
Oh, it does.
There we go.
There we go.
Nate's been on Panda Watch. Panda Watch.
And the peacock in the background.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
I had to pay for that peacock too. It didn't. They didn't give it to me.
Shouldn't be that way, Nate.
Just
I agree.
think of the success stories of that group. I won't even say cast. Judd Apatow, who is the executive producer. Adam McKay, now Oscar winner, riding high in Hollywood, the director. First movie he was directing. Will Ferrell, of course. Vince Vaughn. All these guys. And Steve Carell turns out to be unbelievable. We were doing a charity event where they lined the cast up out in Santa Monica on stage. And we all were given a script, and we went through the entire show reading our parts. And it was a great get together. Christina was there, but anyway, the whole thing, they don't know how to start. And so Adam McKay said, Anchorman doesn't start until Bill Curtis talks. So I said, there was a time.
Awesome.
But anyway, it was great.
Well, Troy, we'll have one more reference from Anchorman. Anything you want to throw out there before
No,
we get on the serious stuff?
I'm fixing to be completely thrown off the show, and hopefully Kim will be here to save me.
She just came in. She just arrived.
I have never watched Anchorman in my life.
Oh my!
What's the matter with you?
We're gonna have to
because Anchorman is too much like the truth at the time, James.
You're like the unvaccinated.
I worked in television for 30 years. I'm sitting there going, damn, sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I have to jump in though with a story, and it's not my story, and I wasn't there, but I've heard it from multiple people. We had a morning anchor in Raleigh by the name of Bill Leslie, who, if you listen to any new age music, he's got a number of albums out. At one point, he was like a top listed, new age sort of world music artist, sort of like Celtic and sort of mountain music. Very, very soothing and relaxing. Good stuff. Plays a lot of instruments. And when they went to go see Anchorman at the movie theater, literally behind where WRAL is, there was a whole group of people from the TV station that went to go watch it. Bill Leslie was among them. And when they get to the jazz flute scene in the club, Bill Leslie is laughing so hard he's crying because it was a little too real. A little too active. It was good stuff. It was one of those moments I wished I'd have been there. That was while I was working in Abilene, Texas. But my favorite line's got to be, loud noises. I love lamp from Brick. What meteorologist has not, loud noises? But good stuff.
Bill, we'll double your pay for the show if you sing Afternoon Delight.
And they're very good, they're harmonizing. And the growth of that thing. Jacksonville has an anchor team. And so for charity, they all get together, actually, the all TV stations, and do Anchorman jokes.
Oh my gosh.
Bill Self, who was a coach at the University of Kansas, staff dressed up in Anchorman suits, and up they come on the big screen, for the entire play. It's clean most of the time, and universal. So imagine my sort of fear when I read the script, and Adam McKay chose me because he was in Second City in Chicago at the time, and I was his anchorman. Hopefully not, the guffaws, but he said, "Well, Bill wouldn't be interested in this." Talking to Judd, well, let's throw in the script, see what he does. I was laughing so hard that they were thrilled to get a third party reading the script because you write comedy. And after the first time, it gets really old. Well, I was still, Harold Ramis was a good friend of mine. I said, is this going to be any good? I mean, is it funny? And he said, you never know. But they're good people, but, you can't predict hits. Yeah. So I go on. I'm still a little nervous. And we had our premiere in New York. And it turns out every anchorman in the country thinks it's written about him.
Imagine that, Bill.
They're all so jealous. I won't go on and on, but I'm supposed to interview Will. And so I said, well, this is your career. How many people have you interviewed? He said, 11. Now, what's key is that it's not 10, it's not 12, it's 11, which is just funny. And I said, 11. Did you fall in love with any of the women? Yes, I did. How about the men? Did you fall in love with any of the men? He said, well, there was just one time when this sportsman in New York and I ran naked through the woods in New York one summer, building toy ships. Now think of that and let it sink in. It is so far off the wall. Even a weatherman wouldn't tell that joke.
My goodness.
And Dr. Kim Clocko-McClain, you came in at just the right time. We're glad you're here tonight. Anything you want to throw at Bill Curtis before we proceed?
Oh, please continue. I would not want to jump in. I mean, how can one possibly think of something to ask after that?
Well, we apologize for everything we're going to say. So
Don't tell her that, Bill. Don't tell her that. We're trying to get Kim to stay.
I'll hang out just for the entertainment, but this was a great welcome to the show. You guys are off to a roaring start.
Well, it's fun. That was fun.
No kidding. That's delightful.
Yeah, I love the opening card where it says the following is based on actual events, and you're like, really? And then it's like, only the names, locations, and events have been changed. And that's
they
just
were
awesome.
going to have a different ending with a baby, which was between Christina and Will. They finally get married. He's going to go off to New York. She's going to follow, and they have a baby. And the camera zooms in on the baby, and the baby, is about 2 or 3 weeks, looks up, and in full deep voice says, "There was a time." that didn't make it.
Oh man.
Kim, I saved one for you. They did invite me to go out to Griffith Park, and they have a bear thing out there, and they had a live bear. And if you'll recall, the sequence is Christina climbs down into the pavilion or whatever, the bear pit, and starts interviewing somebody behind the bear. Well, in this case, the bear sees somebody he's not used to, and here is Christina. And Christina is in the female way. And oftentimes, wild animals will pick up that estrus and kind of go crazy. Well, he goes toward her, makes a little noise, a move. Everybody jumps in. The handler, grabs him, pulls him back, and everybody comes out of the pit. Just one of those little things that never make the movie.
Oh, well, that's too bad. I mean, then in the movie, she had her own, scripted close encounter with bears, but a real one. That's the whole other thing. The things you never know that go on behind the scenes. We've had on some of the folks, here in Norman, who were there when they did filming for Twister, and they've talked about, some of the behind the scenes with Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, and just it all gives so much color, right? To know the personalities, to know the background story, and so that is all really delightful. Thank you for sharing.
Well, I'm from Kansas,
Created by the props behind you. Is that what got us on this track? I have to ask. Yes, it is.
No, that's the real Will Ferrell. I asked him to come in and just stand there.
He is so good at standing still. He is very excellent at it, and just that face. He's very, very, very good at holding it.
And wait, don't tell me, isn't even on television. So that's kind of inspiration for us.
And we're going to have some great limericks in just a little bit. Thanks to Mr. Curtis and Jen and my wife, Elle, who wrote those. But tonight, really, Mr. Curtis is here because of Jen. We put her up to getting you on the show, Bill. So I thought she should have the first question tonight. So we'll turn it over to her.
Yeah. Well, last month we were talking about the anniversary, 55 years of the Topeka, Kansas tornado. And so we were talking about it, and Bill threw it out there, challenged me to see if I could get you on the show. And I'm like, I'm taking the challenge. And I had the honor of talking to you a few years ago in our podcast days when we did a podcast about the Topeka, Kansas tornado. So I thought, Bill, you could just start us off here and take us back to June 8th, 1966. And your story. You were going a path in your career. You're going one way, and then Topeka, Kansas tornado happened, and then you went a different direction. So I thought you could just take it and just tell us what happened that day. Take us through the event.
Well, I was in law school, and you spend 3 years in law school, and you think, well, I should practice at least, put that to work. But I also had 10 years, starting at 16 in Independence, Kansas, in radio. and then in TV, WIBW, there in Topeka. And a friend, I was studying for the bar, and a friend called me and said, "Look, I'm going to go on vacation. Can you come out and do the 6 o'clock news?" I said, "Well, 6, I don't like the tax review, so sure, I'll come out and do it." And it's at 6:30. We got some weather information that roofs had blown off garages in Manhattan, 60 miles, as you know, to the west. And better stick around. And Charlie Ross, our general manager, came down. We were all gathered. We decided to go on at 7. The show was CBS Lost in Space, June Forsyth. We didn't want to go on during the show because our viewers get very mad. So we go at the top of the hour. So as actually the clock is ticking, and I think I remember being on the air at 7 o'clock, and I hear a two-way radio in the studio, and it's the two-way transmission from one of our cameramen who was on the southwest edge of the city, and he says, "We have a tornado on the ground, and it's big. It's white now. It's headed for Burnett's Mound." Burnett's Mound was the protection, of the city. It's going to hit that and then dissipate as it bounces up into the air. So I kind of held my fire, gave the warning, and then as you do, you give enough as much information as you can until the next sighting comes in. And we were about 8 minutes ahead of the National Weather Service. They got mad at us later until they found out that we were actually accurate. And then I get another sighting, and it just wiped out the Huntington apartment. They were luxury apartments. They had just been finished. They had 200 apartments in there. So now I've got in my an arrow passing through 2 points, and it happened to be through the school, university, the dome, the Capitol building, downtown, the Topeka State Hospital, shopping malls, residential, and, real fast, you say, "This is life-changing. What am I going to say?" So I said, "For God's sake, take cover." And the tornado on the ground, it's going this way, and then we start trying to get them to the basement. We were the only television station in town. We're 60 miles from Kansas City, and so we had 75% of the television audience watching us, which happened to be a good deal, and good for them too, because afterwards, we're showered with people who said, "You saved my life. I went to the basement because of you." We were then on the air 24 hours. And we became, all the radio stations were knocked off. We became sort of a conduit between the National Guard and people who were watching us, calling up the Guard, calling emergency for chainsaws and, and ambulances, and then kind of go into the hard slog of survivors. So I had accepted a job as a lawyer in Wichita, and it didn't take me long to think that, I think God is showing me a big sign. And so I resigned my job that I hadn't practiced, and in 3 months I was in Chicago, WBBM, starting a 30-year career with Channel 2, CBS. And it changed my life. Yes, it was the beginning of everything in my career.
Wow.
I guess I've taken away.
Right. What do you even say to that? I mean, we often talk about how tornadoes and other kinds of weather phenomena are transformative on this show. They impact people's lives in so many ways. And sometimes out of disaster grows something new or grows purpose. And so it's really, really great to hear your story about that. What I'm really struck by out of everything you just said is how clearly you still remember all of those details. And tell us about what the community was like afterwards, and what, after having done that service, what did you encounter anyone who'd listened to you and you'd help them sort of through the event? How did all of that go?
I'll give you a good example. We simulcast with radio. The radio was big and reached 93 out of 105 counties. Everybody knew somebody in Topeka. It's the state capital. So a few years ago, I was in Emporia. That's about 60 miles away within our viewing area. And I was giving a dedication speech for the pioneer woman there. And I had a big crowd, and it was 90 degrees. And they sat in the sun in the bleachers. And afterwards, we go over to the shade, but I went up to them and I said, why? I mean, you didn't have to come out here in the sun and sit there. And they said, we were watching that day. And we had family there. And it's, we feel that it saved their lives. So we wanted to thank you. My God. I realized how television and radio could have life-changing power and have an impact of really helping people's lives. And I was able to go on and cover law and go overseas, all those stories, and do the Anchorman movie in the end, in a career. And but you say why I can remember all those facts. Every year they ask me to come back, and they don't want to hear we want to hear the tornado story. And it's like you go back, and so I'm happy to tell the story again because they are able. The newspaper finally, after 50 years, held a memorial service for me with 700 people in Topeka who came. And now you have daughters and grandchildren who just hear about the tornado and what that moment, that beginning of time for all those people was like. So they all have their own images, but then I guess I'm as they say in the law, the best evidence that they have so far. So let's get him up there and hear it one more time. It took 30 years for the trees to grow back. We had 8 out of 10 sandstone buildings on the university in rubble. My wife was in married housing, and a friend grabbed her and my 6-month-old daughter and ran to the science building that was hit square on. They came out, cars were in trees. They were jammed into the light well of the science building. She was sitting near the elevator and had a sucking sound pull her against the wall. And from that moment on, it was 30 years until the trees really grew back to where you can forget about the tornado. It was instant urban renewal. So it's life-changing for me, but I was the guy who escaped. I feel guilty some of the time because the law students had to carry books from one building to another to keep them out of the rain. They had to raise money, to build new buildings, and I was able to kind of leave and start off on a career. But
yeah, well, I'm interested looking at, across all of the different things that you've done. You were in Chicago for a number of years, and it seems to me you've had other large tornado events that have affected communities in your area. Did you have anything to do with the Plainfield tornado, covering it when it happened in 1990?
Actually, I did. I wasn't on the time when it was coming through. Harry Volkman was our weatherman. I had an office across town at the same time I was anchoring, And I went back in. I looked around. I consider myself an expert now. And you have that greenish yellow feel. Not a wind, but it's that absolute quiet with just that strain. Well, I recognized it. I drove across town. I go immediately to the weather wire, and there's a tornado on the ground. I said, is anybody watching? Is anybody reading here? Do you realize? So I was able to get a plane up and a cameraman in the plane. And we got there and got a 7-mile stretch at Plainfield. And then I think in one of the first times we put our coverage together for a VHS and sold it, made money from it, and gave it to the rebuilding project. In Chicago, every tornado that comes to town goes through Plainfield. It's just the laugh, it's out west. Early morning. So there's that, but that's sort of the history. I go on to Managua, Nicaragua, earthquakes, Simi Valley earthquake in LA. I was the first into the Veterans Hospital with a 3-story hospital with veterans that went back to World War I and II and Korea and killed 40 when it collapsed. And that's my life of disaster.
Yeah, it's so interesting to talk with you about such serious things. I love listening to your program now, and you obviously carry a very different tone with that. But the thing that got you, really going and knowing that this is a purposeful area of work, we're really these disasters. And I hope you guys don't mind me asking, these number of questions here. I don't know how much time we have with you, but if I could ask just, oh, sorry. I see that Troy has one for you. I'll pocket it. Go ahead.
No, Kim. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay.
We've got all night, Kim.
Fight.
Okay, good. Yeah, we have one vote for fight. Start a Met fight. All right. Well, I will pass it off to you after this question. But I'm so interested to just hear a little bit more about this great work you've done across the world. And you said that you felt like it was something that could bring meaning and bring a number of things. I'm sure hope bring, there's a power to the voice of radio and reporting in general. What do you feel is the most powerful and impacting work that you have done, either here or abroad? What was the most significant thing that stands out to you, if you can pick one?
Yeah, I broke the Agent Orange story. And I combined my law degree because I was up against 5 chemical companies who had created this herbicide that we used to take the leaves off the trees in Vietnam. Now, I would have been for that too had I been Admiral Zumwalt, because they wanted to clear a free fire zone around a fire base. But they didn't really realize, the military, that it was made up of 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, with a little ingredient called dioxin that happens to be the most poisonous substance made by man. And they had been told, truthfully, that farmers had been using it for 40 years and no problems. But when they ordered it for the herbicide for war, it became a weaponized herbicide that, in order to deliver it in the volumes that had been ordered, they had to increase the fire to create the amount, and they therefore increased the dioxin. So 4 million acres in Vietnam was sprayed, and it was controversial because, a lot of people felt, well, it's just 10 pounds of dioxin that is sprayed, but it was a killer. And to this day, the Vietnamese are suing in world court and have lots of pictures of defects. So anyway, that has been the longest lasting of the stories. But, you're got to have the best seat in the house for riots. I was in the Rodney King riot and coming up to intersections And in Chicago, I was in that riot too. Kind of followed the fires down Madison Avenue as they went west. But it was different in LA because there was no essentially law. The police were so overwhelmed, they would just have to stand and watch. So you'd come up to an intersection. I arrived and there were 10 columns of black smoke. It looked like World War II and the bombing. The South Side, South Central was burning, but you come up to an intersection and there were 4 fires, usually retails on each corner, that were all up in flames. It was amazing, and especially amazing to be there and watch it. And now that is a kind of journalism that you tell what's happening as fast as you can. You warn, stay out of the area. Investigative reporting then kind of came alive with Watergate, and the units, bigger than ever. The Post and New York Times, seem to be the only newspapers left standing. So journalism has changed, but not changed. You still want who, what, where, and how to deliver the facts in a way that's down the middle. But we have split our delivery systems. Mm-hmm. So one network will take a political point of view, and another, you have sort of polar opposites. What it is social media is the key. It has elevated ignorance to the equivalent of a Nobel Prize winner. Yeah. And there isn't a lot of middle ground to educate us by.
Wow. Bill, how much blame do you put on the elimination of the fairness doctrine in that regard?
Well, we should still continue to tell two sides in journalism. And I haven't noticed, other than those examples, where it really was, I think, a loss was in programming. The day after the fairness doctrine, which required us all to go down to the neighborhoods and interview the community groups and make sure that they are being represented, diverse. And we had reports to file with the FAA. The minute we were deregulated and the fairness doctrine was lifted, you saw cartoons in the place of public service programs to make money. And so it's a loss. We should be doing it ourselves, but instead of having the government force us.
Well, Bill, I'm not sure that when it gets down to it, of course, I'm pretty good about flapping my jaws and saying what I think, but I'm wondering sometimes if the social media that you talked about has led to us have the inability to critically think in this country.
Yes.
I've got to think that it just has affected our ability to, nowadays when, I tell you, hey, Bill, the sun rose in the east, I have 50,000 people that argue with me, and it's not like halfway they're ready to burn the house down.
Yeah, that's an example. And they'll storm the Capitol to prove it.
Yeah, and that's what, but I want to go back to something, Kim, because Kim brought up a good point, and Jen, you've brought it up too, and we discussed this pre-show. And I've listened to Bill Curtis here tonight, and I want to compliment you, Bill. And I if I was to give a homework assignment for everyone listening to us or watching us, folks, I'm not saying you have to go and cut the cable tonight, but I would suggest you somehow get an outdoor antenna. My friends here at the Hilton, Alec, and everyone downstairs hate the fact that I've got antennas in the window. But Bill, you know why? Because I get Decades Network. And I want to mention that for the work you and your colleagues have done, because it's the very same thing that I'm hearing out of Bill Curtis tonight. It's documenting the past. We don't just plow down the past because we find it unpleasant. We need to remember it. And I think through the decades, 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central time on the Decades Network, and Bill Curtis and the many years that y'all put into that is amazing. Bill, I tell you, your work
Well,
is
thank you.
amazing. It tells that story the same way that you're telling these stories tonight. And I think that is so important. And I'm telling you, folks, that you're probably getting the Decades Network where you are. Now, you may not know it because it may not be on the cable system, but I'm telling you, get out there and try to pull a signal in and watch Bill's and his colleagues work with this, because it is simply amazing. Weeknights, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on the Decades Network. Bill, good
Wow.
job. Yeah.
And now Bill Murray
Awesome.
paid you a good fee for that.
Yes.
I'm sure. And if he
We'll write
didn't,
you a check every
if he
once in a
didn't,
while.
I will.
It's
We
the
did
gift that keeps on
600
giving.
shows. It's like a day in history, but
It is.
using stories that were reported at the time. Now, they may be fuzzy, you know, and not the crisp 1080i, but it's interesting the way we were telling a story back then versus.
No, it's truly amazing. I don't see, frankly, as far as documenting it, I see no one else, period, cable or otherwise, that does what y'all do, Bill, on this. And I think it is important. And I can sit here and watch, I guess, probably the same date next year, and I'm still just as tied to it next year, the same day that I am this year. It's truly amazing stories to hear what happened on the 19th day of July in history.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Cold Case Files is the same thing, you know, and people love those crime stories so much they will watch reruns over and over.
But I will tell you, Bill, that no one does it like y'all have done it. And as far as covering history, from sporting events to military events to everything, crime events through the years, you do the best job.
Well, thanks. There you are,
And
Kimberly.
And Bill, you mentioned social media. James, what does Tony Rice call social media? He has a word for it, or a term for it.
He calls it a place of bile and weapons grade ignorance.
An open.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, Bill, you touched on Burnett's Mound for a minute. I know Kim probably is interested in this too, because the legend was that it would protect Topeka. Was that myth destroyed with the tornado?
I think it was. It's pretty hard to deny the evidence of the tornado that got past Burnett's Mound. The old Chief Burnett was a big 400-pounder and sat up there. Maybe it would work, but you know, I got to got to Chicago, and we were in better shape with our reporting in Topeka than in Chicago, Illinois. They didn't have the van with a microwave dish on top to go out and look at the local. And this was in 1966. You know, to do the high school football game. And that means we were ready to do the other when it really hit the fan. So
you said the Weather Service got unhappy with you because you issued your warning before they did?
Yeah. And about 8 minutes, they came in and they were going to issue, you know, some punishment. And our general manager took them through it, looked at the evidence that we had, and we said, we can't wait. We have eyes on the storm.
Yep.
And we have people in danger. So they finally, you know, came around and gave us an award, I think.
Talk about growing up, Bill, because you were born in Pensacola, which is a place that's near and special to us, but you graduated high school in Kansas and lived in various different places. How did that influence you later in your development?
Well, I was 13 before I lived off a military base. My dad was a Marine. He was an aviator. He was on Okinawa. He had a squadron that he was working for the Army 27th Corps, in addition to close air support of the Marines with Corsairs, the Gull Wings, and he had 15 planes out. And the weather was such that they couldn't get into the target. So he got a call and said, look, we really need you. You know, we've been pinned down for 4 days. We have a lot of casualties. And the borders from the Japanese are protected on the other side of the mountain. Can you hit them? And they said, well, you know, we'll have to come at our lines, which is a no-no that we rarely do. But you get permission from the high. Well, they gave him the permission. We're going to take a risk. So 15, each with a 500-pound bomb, Corsairs swung out and came to deliver the goods there on the other side of the mountain. Each one was a bullseye, except the last, and it skipped and went into our headquarters tent, command post, and it was the only bomb that was a dud. Well, wow. from that moment, his star was hooked to the commanding general, and had a great career. Think of what would have happened if it had not been such. Anyway, I grew up with all these heroes around me in military, and so I respected, when the base would shut at 5 o'clock so they could lower the flag and play Star Spangled Banner. All the cars would stop. So I'm pretty much a military kid, straight as an arrow, boring to my friends. And so that was a good foundation, wonderful foundation for me. Then went on, to law school, and in '66, after the tornado, I came, and because I was a lawyer, now everybody's a lawyer, but I covered Richard Speck in Chicago, the mass killer.
Talk about that, because that was a really groundbreaking story there too, Bill.
I arrived, and the city was so scared. Everybody was locking their doors because the killer was loose. 8 student nurses were from primarily the Philippines, were here to learn the medical field. And he was a sailor from the Merchant Marines, drunk, on drugs, and late at night, he finds an open screen, climbs in all alone, and waits for each one to come home from their shift, and kills each one. The blood was so thick, they had to put timber down so they wouldn't slip when the police came in. Well, they didn't find him for several weeks, and he was in a Skid Row hotel when they finally came to a suicide call, got him to the hospital, and he was then, it's unable to get a fair trial. So I happened to be in, and they changed venue down to Peoria, and became friends. Now, the capper on it that is good for a television show is he was found guilty, of course, but 1994, he had already been dead. I got a videotape, and the videotape is from a lawyer. To this day, I haven't told the lawyer's name, and it was of Richard Speck sitting in a room off the kitchen, being videotaped, we think maybe for a jailhouse network, stripped naked, a pile of cocaine in front of him, $100 bills in front of him, with, you can cut this.
In prison, right, Bill?
In prison, with his lover sitting right next to him. And he seems to be enhanced, breasts enhanced, because he was the woman in jail. Anyway, it hit like a ton of bricks, and there were 4 consecutive investigations the morning after. They were called by the state, the feds, and I went down to show a little bit of the tape to the Judiciary Committee. The long and short of it is there were there was more of a penal reform of the Illinois prison system than in history. Trying to keep the gangs from running everything, from getting anyway. So that's just one story.
Is that still a passion of yours, prison reform, Bill?
No, it was, but there's just too much to do. Now climate change is my passion.
And we'll talk some about that in just a bit too. And talk about, you and your wife have participated in several civic events, and you see that as a big important priority in the life of leaders. Talk about that for a second. Some ways that you have embodied that, and some suggestions you have to people who want to try to get involved in things like that.
Well, she is chairman of Millennium Park Foundation, so that's a big deal. That is a big deal, James. Something of a big deal.
Big deal.
It's easy to get involved because we have so many needs. Now our need is violence, and nobody has an answer to that. Anyway, but I am asked to participate in charity events and MC and videos and things like that. I don't have a specific. I do library and reading. I do pretty much. I keep a full agenda and fill my time. But I think you should give back, and because people see you on television, they know you, and you have this touchstone with all the community, and carry a certain amount of credibility, and at least you can get their attention.
In your book, Bill Curtis on Assignment, which I have in my weather library, you seem to be able to make foreign things very familiar. And this resonated with my wife, Elle, who's from Albuquerque, because in your book, you describe Tehran as having an appearance like Albuquerque. And so that resonated with her. Yeah. But what's allowed you to give such personal communication to your stories and your audiences?
Well, first of all, you want to be right and accurate. So I also have a kind of a technique of sort of like a 60 minutes. I was a CBS correspondent, which means you don't want to become the story, but you want to use your presence. You'll see it almost every night when you're watching the news, to let the viewer react to you and be represented by you on the scene. So I'm writing a memoir right now, and I've got 35 chapters. Each one is a separate adventure. We wound up in Cambodia several years ago, and realized in order to get into, we were looking for a cow that was the original cow with all its genes, called a Cupre, probably extinct. But I always have the feeling, well, at least it'll be a good adventure story to go in and try and find it. But they wanted to give us an escort, so we wound up with this armed escort, and they were Khmer Rouge, the guerrillas who actually killed 2.5 million people during the Cambodian genocide. And we had to go in on elephants. So we go a dugout canoe for about 4 hours, find our elephants, and it was the only way to get into the interior of a forest right on the border of Vietnam and Cambodia. And so I'm sitting there, we're having our little dinner over the fire, and our interpreter comes and says, well, the men would like to talk to you. Okay, they've got all the guns, we don't. What could it be? Well, I got over there, and they were very, very serious. They were young enough to be worried, have worried all their lives. And through the interpreter, he said, they want to know if you think that God will forgive them for what they have done. What they did was kill people by taking a shovel and hitting them in the back of the head, in creating the killing fields of Cambodia. What am I going to say? I'm not a priest. So I said, yes, I think he will. Actually, I don't. But anyway,
what else could you say at that point?
Yeah, well, what are you gonna say? So for every story, especially in a foreign land, you have those kinds of adventures.
Were you ever in fear for your life? Obviously, that came pretty close to it right there.
In 1975, I was, as the Sagan was falling, and I always had a local connection. My local was Peter's Pence, that the Holy Name Cathedral was sending over to help the refugees around Saigon. The North Vietnamese were coming down Highway 1, and a Hammond, Indiana flight engineer was part of a team that was flying 707s or DC-8s from Tan Son Nhut into Phnom Penh to keep it alive, carrying 20 tons of rice in the hold. So I went over and flew over with them, and we landed. It took 2 hours to load the rice. It took 9 minutes to unload it. It was under fire, rockets kind of going around, but we took off like a Piper Cub. These guys wanted to get out of there. So as we were coming into Tan Son Nhut, there was no air traffic control. I was in back. I wanted to get the empty hold to show before and after. And I felt myself going up into zero gravity. And I actually reached out and grabbed a cargo net and pulled myself down, and then sheepishly crawled back to my seat. And it was the DC-8 having to dive and avoid a mid-air collision with a fighter plane coming out. That was as close, I think, as I have gotten to being splashed around the walls. That is a good story.
You covered the Iranian Revolution, and of course, I've always been interested in Jimmy Carter's, memoir, what he went through as president of the United States, and steadfastly remained, true to his mission that he felt like he had to bring those hostages home safely. Talk about your experiences and memories. I remember the movie Argo. I love that movie where they got some of those folks out through the Canadian embassy. But talk about your memories of that revolution.
Well, so many of the Iranian kids are educated in America. They love the cowboys because that looks like Iran down there in Texas. So they're friendly to Americans, and they want to talk about America. And you have a very upper class up. It's kind of built like Albuquerque on these rising elevations. We said, well, you need to go to the bazaar. And so we went into the bazaar. It's this crowded shopping mall, if you will, that goes back 2,000 years. And you walk down, and I was picking up the hostility at the time because our embassy folks were being held hostage. And we got out at the other end, and I realized this is a living opium den. They're sitting on the curb shooting up, and well, let's get our shots and leave. But it was so easy, and we weren't being threatened at the time, that I made a mistake. And I left and then said, let's go back and pick up some additional shots. Second time through, they have had a chance to talk among themselves, and they start getting around us. And it was pretty rough. So we ran for the car on the edge. Didn't have time to get into the car, so we went into what was a sort of a pharmacy or a drugstore. And the big plate glass windows on the side, the crowd came up and they were pounding on the window, and the guy behind the counter, he said, I own this. I'm a Muslim. I don't like Americans. But my religion says that if you come as a guest into my house, I have to protect you until you are safely out. He did. and took us to the door. He parted the ways, made them stay quiet, got a cab, we got into it, and we were not hurt. And I didn't become Muslim, but I sure respected them ever since. So we like the Iranians. We have an open mind about these religions, primarily because we want to know your story. What do you think? And I want to tell it to your satisfaction and best represent you. Now, down the line, an analysis may show that you're wrong. And that's one of the modern problems, is that I still believe in getting two sides of the story and letting you draw your own conclusions. But what if it's obvious that one of those sides is not right, is false? Don't you have to call it? Even Edward R. Murrow said, sometimes you have to call it. And now, we have, one network that believes just in continuing to broadcast. And incidentally, there's news tonight that,
it's always at the best part where we lose. There we get next. Yeah. Say all that again, Bill. We lost you for 30 seconds.
Oh, well, I was thinking too of the limericks. We're going to go through this thing without having any limericks. And James is going out of his mind. If you look at James Spann right now, he has been pulling out his hair to the point he doesn't have any.
None. Absolutely none. I used to be a good-looking guy like Bill, and look what happened to me.
And you're in the weather business. How could you?
So Bill, have you followed the life and times of Anthony Bourdain? His documentary's out, and it's really an amazing film. Roadrunner. I saw some similarities in his reporting in yours, pretty amazingly. Would you agree or disagree with that?
No, I would. He had a wonderful way to express himself. He puts himself in the story, and you connect with him. He's such a good character, and want to know, what he thinks. And yes, you write for television, but basically you're communicating with your whole presence and body. And what a shame. He committed suicide. We never know what demons he was dealing with, but I think one of them was loneliness.
Mm-hmm. If you get a chance to see that film, it's in theaters now. You really should take advantage of it because it's really cool. Jen, I know you got a question, and then I've got one more. And I know we want to get any panelists in before we have some fun with the Limerick challenge in just a minute. So you hit it, Jen.
Okay. Yeah, Bill, I know, radio has been such a huge part of your career and continues to be. And as a radio broadcast meteorologist, it's, a huge part for me too. I would just love your opinion on where do you see radio going? Is radio still important to folks, especially if, on the local level? And where do you see it going over the next several years? I'm just curious.
That question has been raised because radio has had some hard times. 20 years. AM seems to be dead. FM is strictly for music. But in fact, it's an instant communication. And we need it for tornadoes and especially for weather. And of course, there is a rebirth of radio and audio with podcasts. So that may give it life again, whether it's the radio that we know and have known for the past 10 or 20 years, or an audio service like a podcast. My God, it's going crazy. I mean, to pay a Joe Rogan $100 million. Somebody's making money.
We're still waiting on that money to get here, Bill. It hasn't come here yet.
We make the big bucks on this show.
But Bill, I think you bring it up, but I wonder sometimes if we don't go back to where we were earlier about this thing called community service in radio. It scares me when we've got radio stations that are nothing but recorded programs all day long.
Jukeboxes.
And then we have a train derailment in a market a number of years ago. And it took 18 hours for those people to be able to find someone. It was an evacuation in the Plain States, and it took 18 hours for them to be able to find anyone that could go in and program that station live. Community service fell on its head that day. I mean, that's not community service. That FCC license, like you pointed out, I think bears with it a responsibility to the local community.
I do too. You need a leader, a manager who can blow out commercials and say, we're going to devote ourselves to serving the community. I started, as I mentioned, when I was 16, and my boss was great. I mean, just, he teaches you everything. And
yeah.
So I leave for college and leave for my career. And I go down, and the tornado is rolling in, a tornado or thunderstorm, very heavy in Independence, Kansas. And I turned on KIND, that radio station, and he's on the air. He's 88 years old, on the air. And he's ripping wire copy. He doesn't have the fancy stuff, but he has information. And so I'm glued to it. And he's the only one who was talking about the black boiling cloud that is bearing down on us. And I said to myself then, if I go, I'm going to go like him. And he died falling into the console where he had moved the radio station up by the transmitter to save rental downtown because he had nobody who could make money selling things. That was a tradition that I hoped wouldn't die then. But it's a matter of making money. What can make money? And I think the strength is in, you said it, in community radio. Do the high school football games.
Yes.
Do the parades. And they can be as exciting as anything else. Go down to the used car lot and have the remote. But at least you'll be on the air and have people working.
Well, Bill, there's one thing that I think is good, and James Spann has been very good with this, and he's made it happen in Alabama. And that is sometimes, Bill, even if you don't have the staff at the local radio, have some type of agreement with a local TV station where at least you can carry simulcast the James Spanns of the world, where you can at least get something on through that voice on the radio. And then you've got James on TV. James is excellent at what he does. And I know he's on radio stations throughout Alabama during tornado outbreaks because they have agreements with ABC 3340. So, yeah, I think that's a good way. It gives me at least something to be hopeful for.
Well, we should say before we go on is that if there is one hot genre in the broadcast world, it's weather.
Yeah.
It is weather. So you guys happen to be sitting, just like Branson, going up into space at the hot spot at the right time. So I take my hat off to you.
It's fun to listen. I've listened because of the blessing of the internet to Jen doing radio coverage, these small stations in Kansas. I think maybe mention a couple of them, Jen, that, where you get on there with the anchors and they do a great job, the DJ or whoever's running the board.
Yeah, I'm on the Eagle stations out in Hays, Kansas, Salina, the Eagle stations there. I'm on WIBW AM in Topeka. So I cover a lot of Kansas, KMBZ in Kansas City. And so in all of those stations, if there's a tornado warning, we do go live. And it's important. And throughout this, past several years, we've been told several times, we've had to cut back, but we have to have weather. There needs to be a weather voice. Because a lot of times they want a different voice. They want a meteorologist. They want someone who can be a calming voice through severe weather and the tornado coverage or whatever. So that is important. And I've been in radio since 1997. I love it. And I miss going live more and being part of the radio shows, like the morning show. I miss doing that. Most of my stuff is recorded, but I loved it. Being part of the show. They brought in, the weather girl to do the morning hits and stuff. It was great. But weather is still important. And I agree that community service, reaching out to your local community and being that voice is so important. And not just being a canned bunch of recordeds and music all the time. We need to break in and we need to be local and reaching out to folks.
Automated from Los Angeles, your adult contemporary music, that is running there while the garages are blowing away is a travesty.
Yes.
So you've got to have somebody to cut in live. Well, good luck.
The one thing, Bill and Jen, that we don't have anymore, it's a training ground for young people, because when I was a kid, I grew up in a radio station playing rock and roll music. I mean, I was playing Leonard Skinner, the Allman Brothers, the Carpenters, the Bee Gees, Led Zeppelin. I mean, it was the most eclectic mix in the 70s. But that gave me the opportunity to learn how to communicate to a mass audience when I was in high school and college. And that's really, really a good foundation for somebody that does weather. And those jobs don't exist anymore because they shut the things down. They're automated. But, back in those days, there were weekend shifts and midnight shifts. And I hate that because younger people don't have a chance to do that anymore. But
yeah,
it is what it is.
You're right.
And
but I guess they can do their own podcast.
You think, James? Yeah.
TikTok videos. So, Bill, I wanted to ask you one thing that struck me as very interesting. You and your sister inherited the historic site of Little House on the Prairie in Kansas. So, talk about how that came about in your family and how you've preserved this piece of American history.
Well, we had somebody who was doing research down around Independence, Kansas, and Wayside, and they read the Little House on the Prairie book, Laura Ingalls Wilder, and they started going to the records, and here are the county records. Sure enough, it's Charles Ingle, and he talks about 40 miles outside Independence, and they realized, well, that's 40 miles in the dirt roads. Now it's only 14, and they put a pin on the map, and it happened to be in my mother's farm. So we moved my grandmother's one-room schoolhouse on the location. The community built a log cabin, and it's on Highway 75. You'll see the sign, pull off, and you can see where they lived when they lived out on the prairie. We don't do much more than that, but it's not Disneyland.
That's pretty awesome. So I'm a big fan of NPR and PBS and love all the shows, but Wait's sort of a guilty pleasure for me. I guess I'll ask James or any of the other panelists if they have any other questions before we talk about Wait for a minute and then play a little game. James, did you have any burning questions for our esteemed guests tonight?
So Bill, you sit down, you come home, you sit down and you turn on the news in the evening. Do you miss it at all? Do you miss anchoring the news at night?
I miss the excitement of going live and having to use your brain to. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to do a podcast on the takeoff of the book. We interrupt this broadcast, and they got all the broadcast people to talk about the moments like 9/11 when they were on the air. And it's pretty good. But anyway, one of the things we're talking about is that, and Cronkite talked about this, you sort of layer in, you're a living computer, and you layer in the information that is coming into the newsroom or on the wire, and you're the final filter. And you don't get emotional. You maintain, your straight arrow, but you're the one who can answer the questions of 0 to 10 as it is developing with a demeanor that's businesslike and there to serve. Now, the service may save lives if the disaster is serious enough, But that's the kind of training that you can get only if you're on the air doing it at that radio station and getting the experience of the job, because you're thinking. You have to put the brain to work. You can't read it off the wire. That's old talk, or the computer.
So was it more enjoyable working locally at WBBM or at the network at CBS for you? What was the happiest times of your life?
Probably locally, because you see the people you're reporting on the street the next day. So you can see an effect of a story that you have read. At the network, it's exciting. You are flying around the world, but you never see the pieces that you file on the evening news. And it's that one-to-one contact that really is satisfying. The best time I had was a PBS series called The New Explorers. And we did 8-hour documentaries a year for 8 years. And it was a dream job. You go down in the Alvin submersible to the volcano that is forming off the coast of the big island in Hawaii. You go to Cambodia for the Kupre. It was great.
All right, Bill, take it away.
Well, as I said, Bill, Wait's a guilty pleasure for me and my wife, Elle. We love that show. Talk about the behind the scenes of it, how it comes to be each week, and share any inside baseball you can about it.
We're doing it from our home because of COVID. Each of us have a little room like this, a microphone and computer, and then it's radio, what we're talking about here, and we have a script. And we go through the script and take the cues, and then the panelists will skate on their own. They're all stand-up comedians, so they're anxious to put a funny spin on the day's news. So it takes us a couple hours. We do rehearsal in the afternoon and then come in. We're going to be Our live show is supposed to be August 7th, I think, in Philadelphia, but whether we'll get to do it. And there, live audiences are 7,000, 5,000 here, 7,000, fill those theaters. I usually come in with the identification. Let's see, last week was up and away. I'm billionaire or something like that, introducing myself. And then I introduced Peter Sagal by saying, and here is a man, our host is a man who is just now discovering what those two little strings on his foot, on his shoe are for. Peter Sagal. And they're great. He's a great writer. So it's always fun. He is. And we laugh. We laugh for 2 hours among ourselves. And
we do at home as well. And one of those is the Limerick Challenge that you do so beautifully. So Jen and my wife Elle created some limericks for you today. So we're going to target some of the WeatherBrains panelists here tonight. The first one is Kim. So if you want to take a shot at it, Bill, will you read Kim the first limerick?
I sure will. And, these are so good that they may show up on the show. I hope you don't sue me. I don't see the copyright down here. So here we go. Western forest fires roar toward the plains. Massive blazes no longer seem strange. Now German floods rise, a deadly surprise in this crazy world of...
Yeah.
I think
this crazy world of climate change.
I think Nate's ready.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And this is my reaction on the show, because I never think anybody's going to get one of these things. But you're absolutely right.
Good job, you did it. Good job.
Good for you, Kim. You win the car. You get a car.
Wow.
Great. Wow. Wow.
We've upgraded the prizes on this show.
Okay. Shall we see how smart James is?
Yeah,
Unless he wrote one of these.
No, he's totally ignorant of this entire process.
Ignorant is the key word. Ignorant. Yes.
While storms never reached South Dakota, these hurricanes' names passed their quota. Our hurricane speak led us to the Greek, with names reaching as far as
James.
Greek. Let me pull up my Greek name list here.
Rhymes with quota. 20.
Iota.
Yes.
We
Right.
need a
How
bell.
did
Ring
you
the bell.
get that? Oh my God.
Yeah, ring the bell. Ring the bell. Iota.
Okay, Jennifer's next, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of can cheat. I know the script.
Oh, you know the script.
Yeah, that's okay.
Can we move? Winter in Texas ain't never nice, but this year Texans paid a high price. For shortcuts and gain, many tried to explain why the desert was covered in
ice.
Ice it was.
Yes.
All right. See how interesting these
It was
are.
very good.
Well, I'll let you choose the next one, Bill.
Yeah, give the next one to Troy. It's on the same subject. But.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Ready, Troy?
Oh, boy.
Speaking
Ready
of
for you,
people who
Bill.
have paid the price.
That's right.
The pressure is on, isn't it? So, like a blizzardly snow globe shaker, snow and ice covered every acre. Cold at Homewood Suites. Troy.
Oh no!
Oh, we lost you. We lost you for a second, Bill. Do it
Oh,
again.
you did.
Me too.
Well, we
Exactly.
can read it again. Like a
Yes.
blizzardly snow globe shaker, snow and ice covered every acre. Cold at Homewood Suites, Troy hoped for a treat. Please bring this man a
Waffle machine.
waffle maker.
Yes.
Waffle maker.
Yes.
There you go.
Waffle maker.
There you go. All right, Nate Johnson, you're up
Okay.
next.
Who? Okay.
Nate Johnson.
Nate.
Nate.
Yeah.
Nate's
Our
known
NBC
every
man.
one of these because he's been smiling at every one. All right.
I'm also ridiculously competitive at this. So this will be the one that I don't get out of all
Right?
of these.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Here we go. Even if tornado alerts are performing, weather forecasters still will be mourning. When big tornadoes abound, a media quote will be found. Invariably, the storm struck without
Warning.
Yes, warning indeed.
Yep.
Shall we
Well,
give
this one's got to be for James. This next one, Bill.
Okay, James. Here we go.
Yeah.
Suspicious are those cirrus veils, and even more the wispy jet tails. You say it's just mist, but here is the twist. Conspiracy theorists blame
That's great.
I was ready for that one.
Yeah.
Oh, you were. We only have two left.
We saw that 2 weeks ago. I mean, that was
Yeah, exactly. All right, Kim,
Okay.
you're in the hot seat. Kim's
Here we
up
go,
now.
Kim. Stats tracking storm paths have been tallied. Some topics cause chasers to rally. Like, where is the spot? Twisters like a whole lot, such as Dixie's tornado.
Alley.
Alley, of course. And who should know better but somebody in Norman? I think, well, we have a few more.
Two more.
Two
Let's
more,
go
okay.
let's ask Troy the next one.
Okay, Troy. It's time to challenge our weather books on where we look for the radar hooks. Deep south, or the plains? Puzzles, weather brains. More research we need from
2 weeks ago. This might have been a better one for Kim.
She knows.
Kim saved Troy.
Yeah, I need help. I need help from Kim.
Phone a friend.
I think the rhyme at least is sort of suggestive. Harold Brooks.
That's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a good one. And what last one, Bill?
Let's do two more. We got that last one is really killer, so we'll have to do that one.
Okay.
We'll
here
save
we
that
go.
one for James, and we'll do this
Okay.
one for.
You
Who
call
wants
them-
this one? Nate,
call
you
them
take
out?
this one.
Nate.
Okay. As the high pressure ridge misbehaves and the Omega block will not cave, Pacific Northwest grids put to the test, suffering through this northwestern.
Heat wave.
Yay!
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
Do you know how many listeners are throwing things at the radio right now? Jeez.
That's
Exactly.
par for the course for this program. So
Yes.
That's nothing new.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Exactly.
James gets the last one.
One more. Oh, he's got his special
soundboard
sound
ready,
ready
yeah.
for us.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Alas, here's Brutus, Cantori exclaims. Atlas, Athena, and Nemo take aim. Each flurry and flake, please stop for God's sake. Can't remember these winter's storm.
Names.
Names it is. Names it is. Well, my guy will
Yes.
be proud of you right back here.
Yes.
Those were awesome, Bill. Thank
Well,
you.
what fun.
Again, thank you, Elsa.
Oh, that was fun.
Unbelievably
That's
Oh,
terrific.
my
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being so enthusiastic about it. And it's an hour and 90 minutes now, Bill, that I will always treasure.
But wait. Just before Bill goes, he's got to do a liner for us. I mean, come on.
Mhm.
Bill, you got to do a liner for us.
Okay.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal. How about that?
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
Love it.
That's the greatest. That's the greatest, man.
And,
My life is now complete.
Yeah.
You stay classy, WeatherBrains. Well,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Bill,
Movie
you're the
listening.
greatest. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Bill.
so much.
My
Thank you, Bill.
my pleasure.
And
You're
come
the
back and see us when
greatest.
your new book is out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they will. They will. Lots
Please
of
do.
stories. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Anything else we need to promote, Bill, before you go? Any other promotions we need to do here for you? Any special projects we don't know about?
Well, I'm gonna narrate Cold Case Files again. It'll starting on the air on A&E. 35 shows.
Wow.
And my last show there was they took it off the air. Now it's everywhere from Netflix, all the old ones. So this is kind of like the kids going home to live with their parents. A surprise. Anyway, Cold Case Files. Cold
All right.
Case Files.
Awesome. Well, Bill Curtis, thank you for being on the show. You, sir, are a legend.
Thank you,
and
Bill.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you so
James
much,
and
Bill.
Bill and Troy and Kimberly and Jennifer and Nate. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
We're
Thank you,
going to
sir.
take a quick break here for Tony Rice and Jen's This Week in Tornado History. We're going to come back with the Weather Roundup, Picks of the Week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
The moon reaches full phase on Friday, July 23rd. Like other full moons, it's used to mark the passage of the year and has earned a number of names from both Native American and other communities across the United States and Canada. You may know it as the Buckmoon, a name mentioned in the Old Farmer's Almanac, and a nod to the time when male deer tend to shed and regrow their antlers. The Cree people around Lake Superior, they call it the feather molting moon. Now, some Native peoples note the common weather conditions of the time. Both the Western Abenaki around what is now Quebec and the Catawba Indian Nation in South Carolina, they know July's full moon as the thunderstorm moon. That passing of the moon phases, also called lunation, can have agricultural significance as well. The eastern band of the Cherokee Indians in North Carolina call it the corn and tassel moon. In the Oneida, they know it as the string bean moon, while the Mohican tribe around Wisconsin, they call it the honeybee moon. But my favorite is the delightfully literal halfway summer moon of the Ojibwe or Chippewa people in southern Canada. Elsewhere in the sky, with that summer about halfway over, look for the southern triangle in the sky. It rises in the east after dark and is visible all night. It's formed by 3 bright stars, Deneb, Altair, and Vega. This asterism, as a result, is sometimes known as Dave. If your skies are dark enough, you might even see the Milky Way running right through Dave. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history. On July 21st, 1987, an F4 tornado tracked across the Teton Wilderness into Yellowstone National Park. Over 1 million trees were knocked down as the tornado slashed its way across mountaintops up to 10,000 feet high and through valleys. This is the highest altitude in the United States that a violent tornado, an F4 or F5, has ever occurred. Dr. Ted Fujita observed F4 damage to a swath of trees along Gravel Ridge shortly after the tornado developed. He noted that Engelmann spruce trees that were 12 to 15 inches thick were easily toppled and had their bark stripped off. The topsoil that was scoured from the ground was plastered against these debarked trees. Some of the trees were even pulled up from the ground and carried a considerable distance. The tornado produced a swath of damage at 24 miles long and up to 1.6 miles wide. Dr. Fujita also found a total of 72 microbursts that accompanied the tornado, making the swath of blowdown in some areas up to 2.5 miles wide. He believed that the large number of microbursts around the tornado helped to maintain the vortex in such topography. You can check out more details about this event by reading our premium summary. Become a member at tornadotalk.com.
Let's talk about what's happening in the world of weather. A little weather roundup here. Down here in our neck of the woods, we had some flooding issues this evening. This is the time where I start to see the reports from our volunteer weather observers. We call them sky watchers. And I got one guy here on the Slack session. He came in with, 5.32 inches, which is just west of Birmingham in the community of Virginia Mines and Hueytown. So some spots going over 5 inches of rain. Obviously, some flooding issues down here today. Bill Murray, you had another.
Yeah, the flood defenses were breached today, James. They were breached. So we'll have to go back to the drawing board. This is the 5th 4-inch event in 21 months. We had 4.03 inches of rain. The Birmingham airport sitting at 6.27 now. Usually in July we would only have 3.21. They smashed the normals for May and for June too, 8.46 inches in June. So it just keeps on coming. But I'm ready for it to go somewhere else. Could we ship it out west, James? Maybe California, Nevada, Utah, some of those places.
I'm showing Birmingham at 5.23.
Well, I made that note a long time ago. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, it's been wet down here, and obviously it's feast or famine with rain, but it's going to stay wet for a little bit. But there's evidence of a pattern flip maybe next week, where instead of the trough, we get the ridge. And if that's the case down here in the deep south, I think, Troy, that will affect you as well. Heights are coming up, warmer air aloft, heat levels go up, rain chances go down. So, Troy, maybe you're kind of in the same boat we're in.
I think so. Tonight is interesting. I did not mention it toward the top of the show, but the thunderstorms that came south and produced at my co-op station, which is 3.5 miles that way, 5,907 inch. Actually, all this was kind of spurred by a bit of an upper air disturbance and actually a surface cold front, James, down through the Austin area today. It actually is just south of us now. It's likely to dissipate in the coming days, but again, enough instability for some more showers and thunderstorms around. Bergstrom Air Force Base. Wow, that shows you my age. Out at Bergstrom Airport today, about 1.5 inches, which puts Bergstrom and Camp Mabry, the in-city site, both well above average now for the month here in Austin. So it's been very unusual. If you recall back in late May on this show, we discussed how the people at the Climate Prediction Center were sensing, and even some of the, the month outlooks, part of the European series, were suggesting a cloudier and perhaps somewhat, I use in quotes, cooler weather pattern into the summer over the southern plains. And guess what, folks? That's really materialized from what we've seen over the last few. But the indication, like James said, things may be a changing by the time we get into the weekend and the following week. And then James, as we well know, in Texas anyway, the warmest month of the year is usually August, and usually the second into third week is when you see the warmest. So we still may have Hades in store, down the road. Never can tell.
By the way, what was our show title? We had so many show titles with Bill Curtis. Which one did we depict?
I think it's got to be For God's Sake, Take Cover.
Take cover.
Yeah, I think that's the hands down.
And we need
winner.
to find a way to actually that it's Bill's audio, not just the text on the screen, but you hear Bill Curtis actually saying that in his voice.
Yeah,
I can ask for that. We could probably get that. We need to get Tony's liner too, so I'll write and ask for that.
And in that sense, it's not because of a tornado; it's because he was on this show.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
For God's sake, take cover. Yeah,
that's right.
Let's go up the road to Norman. Kim, what's happening? Oklahoma's been kind of quiet this summer.
It's been great. We've all been getting our roofs redone, so please, we're fine. Like, I'll repeat this: we are fine. We have been having a really pretty mild summer, and so we were the beneficiaries of that cold front yesterday, and we've gotten a little bit of storm action. There've been a couple of evenings of northwesterly flow events that have come through central Oklahoma. And if you take a look at the Oklahoma Mesonet and look at the rainfall departures from normal over the past couple of months, there's really this area that includes Norman that's sort of a diagonal from southwest to northeast, where we are really sitting well above normal for rainfall. So especially here in central Oklahoma, and especially the counties, Cleveland County and Oklahoma County, including Oklahoma City, we're sufficiently saturated that now when we get these summertime convection events that dump a couple of inches of rain, there's flash flooding throughout the metro area, and that just keeps playing out over and over and over again. So it's been sort of an interesting summer. It's not quite as prolific as in some years past, where we've had Oklahoma can just be a feast or famine state when it comes to moisture. And so there are some years where you think of 2015, 2007 was the year that we had, Tropical Storm Aaron, the eye wall reformed over Oklahoma. It was on the heels of just months and months of rain, and we were sort of a body of water as that moved over. Those were more widespread, sort of over the entire state, where there were broader mesoscale processes in place that just kept us, getting the deluges of rain day after day. That hasn't really been the case with this, but we are in that favorable region, with the blocking high out west. We're sort of in line to sort of get these flow events, and I have no complaints, but I also feel awful because I know that while it's calm and pleasant here, that means that someone's baking somewhere else. Exactly. And there's sort of a guilt attached to that. So it'll be interesting. I think we are going to get summer, like Troy, you've been talking about, we'll get it too when the pattern shifts. And I think that'll be a bit of a rude awakening for us, since I don't think we've broken 100 here in Norman yet, which is it's extremely pleasant, but that might change.
The hottest temperature on record here was in September of 1925. It can be so hot in early September, and I just have great, I say concern. I mean, people are ready for it here. I mean, we have had so much rain, and it's been so mild. I think people are ready for some hot, dry weather. So we'll see if that pattern flip happens. Nate, where are the hurricanes? When does the Atlantic Basin wake up?
Don't know, and it can stay quiet as far as I think we all care after the year we had last year. The dust actually from the Saharan, helping to probably mitigate what might be otherwise a more active period this time of year. Sea surface temperatures are still through the roof in most areas. But speaking of dust and other things, smoke has been an issue. I know, like DC, for example, seeing hazy skies from the wildfire smoke that's been picked up, from the west, and then picked up in the upper level winds and brought east, and that's been a thing. Here in Raleigh, we had the coolest day since May 31st of this year, so we didn't We had 76 at RDU as of 5 o'clock anyway. And that puts us at the coolest here. We had some rain after a very wet winter. We had a very dry spring, and now summer is making up for the spring here. And it looked like the thing that concerns me, James, about the pattern flip is that it's not so much a flip as it seems to be just an expansion of the ridge from the west, sort of going, full coast to coast. And so the west, you'd expect if you truly got a flip that they'd actually get some rain out of that, but that ain't going to happen. It's just going to be dry for them too, which is just brutal.
So, Jen, how are you faring with all of this up in Ohio?
No complaints in the Ohio Valley. We've got high pressure here, and we've had, it's kind of been an interesting couple of months. It's not been overly hot, but we've had like periods of some stormy weather, and then several days, that it's been bone dry, and so we're in one of those dry periods right now. With a dry front coming in, I could actually get into the 50s Wednesday night, so I'm fine with that. And then some rain coming back in for the weekend. And here she comes, going right across the screen there.
Whoa.
Bag of kittens.
That's right. Every
cat,
Monday.
Cat.
Every Monday. So anyway, no, it's all good up here, and just trying to get a little bit more rain. It was pretty dry there for a while there, but things have kind of just gotten calm here.
And it looks like the monsoon has been kind of cranking up in Arizona and the Southwest. They've had a lot of rain in spots out there, which hopefully is beneficial to them. All right, so we are at 40 till. Obviously, with the flooding, I've got to bail out here in just a second. So, and again, we should mention Aubrey is, I think she's on vacation this week. Is that the situation with her? So she is not on the show, so we're not going to have an email segment. So when she gets back, we'll give her plenty of time to read the emails. But let's kind of start the picks of the week, and let's go over to Troy. And by the way, how's your house? People are curious. I mean, this is like a soap opera every time you come on. I mean, we expect to see you back in your office. We expect to see the old set, but you're still at the Homewood Suites.
Yeah, still at the Homewood Suites, and I'm hoping to be back over there by New Year's. That may be a joke and may not be, so I'm not sure. Now there's a little progress going, but I have a checklist, and we're going to have everything checked off the list. So, so hopefully the next couple of weeks, that's what we'll look at now. My pick of the week, I don't think it'll surprise you, isn't really a website or anything, but I think we need to discuss it a little bit. Again, we've had a number of National Weather Service outages, IT outages over the weekend into today, including our friend Daryl Hertzman, who reported from Iowa State that at least a couple of flash flood warnings did not receive dissemination because of this outage. Folks, we've got to look at this, and there are a lot of people that are listening in or watching in to this podcast. This is an issue. It's been an issue. It's been going on too long. And again, we're dealing with it again. And I don't know how long we deal with it until we stand up and say, this is it. Something has to change. And so I bring that up as my pick of the week to give us some thought material.
Indeed. And again, all these picks will be on the website, weatherbrains.com. Kim, do you have a pick of the week?
I do. It's a little bit late breaking, but I do want to highlight that there is a survey out if you are interested in attending the AMS annual meeting this year. The planning committee is again trying to decide, will this be an event that's in person or will it be virtual? Things are changing constantly, and our professional societies are struggling to keep up. I feel badly for the National Weather Association. Their annual meeting is coming up in about a month, I think. And this is just very, very bad timing, that there was, the hope that everything in Tulsa could be set, could go on in person and be fine. And we're just going to have to see, how all of that pans out. And I'm sure the AMS is watching that carefully, but AMS has to make their own decisions. They have to do the budget allocation sort of now. So as much as there is the ambiguity of everything that's going on, if you have any inclination of what your preferences might be, and if there was virtual, what it should look like, what kinds of things interest you, what was not as good, with virtual last year, what maybe was good, that would all be really valuable input now. The decisions to be made are really tricky, and a lot of big dollar, consequences are part of this. So if you do have that interest, I encourage you, please let your voice be heard, let your preferences be heard and considered.
One other thing too, Kim, that I think is important here in Austin, they announced late this afternoon, we're going back up to number 4 category here, which involves masks again in Austin. They say in the next couple of days. And folks, I'm beginning to lose track of this, but we were talking about the Delta variant, which is out there. And KTRK in Houston had a web story. They now have identified a Lambda variant that is now in Houston.
Brother.
Oh,
a Lambda variant.
And if everybody would wear their masks, and do what they're supposed to do, this thing would not have the incubators to create variants.
And who are you?
To do something.
Oh, you're Bill Murray. Okay.
There's Bill Murray. Right. We can
okay,
tell.
thanks.
I'll make a personal appeal here. If nothing else, of anything that's happened over the last year and a half has hit, anybody who's listening. I know it's sort of a small thing, but my daughter, she was born 9 months ago. We hadn't taken her to a church since she'd been born. She hadn't graced the doors of a church yet because kids can't get vaccinated for this. And we decided, though, things had looked clear enough that we planned her baptism. And so we planned it for this past weekend. And going into it, we were a little leery, like, well, I think we should get this done because we don't do it now. It might not happen until she's walking, and talking. And then some of our family members who even were vaccinated got COVID.
Yes. And
were not able to attend. And it was a difficult decision to make. And it was heart-wrenching for our family. This was a lovely, and very important ceremony to us. But they even vaccinated, they have the mild form of the illness, which is what vaccination assures you. It never was, you're all of a sudden in plated armor and you can never get it. Yeah. What it does is it helps you to survive it. Your immune system is taught, here's the fighting tools, go after it.
Yeah.
But it's still scary. And, especially in a state like where I am, it's so prevalent again. I really implore, anyone who is listening, at the very least, the masking is just a wonderful thing to do. And if you haven't gotten your vaccine, please do consider it. There are now almost 1 billion people worldwide who've gotten it, 1 billion. And so if you think about when vaccines were introduced, there weren't that many people on the planet to be the guinea pigs, the so-called guinea pigs before you. This has been one of the most extensively tested vaccines that's ever existed at this point. So you should feel a whole lot of comfort. I don't just turn it into public health brains, but I think for the good of our field, I mean, we have a lot of institutions that are struggling because of the financial burdens placed on this. The science is going to start languishing if people can't get back together. Science is about people interacting, and there have been some people who've been able to dig into their holes and be introverted and get things done. But for the most part, those good ideas, they happen when people like us all get together and share. So I'll get off my soapbox with that. But thank you for opening up the opportunity and discussing.
Okay, so my pick of the week, and Bill, I'm going to let you pick it up after this because I've got to go into Studio A. There is a NOAA site that involves lightning deaths. And I didn't know that existed. We actually haven't had that many. In fact, they have not put the latest one on that site. We had a 71-year-old that was killed on a golf course in Taylor, Pennsylvania, a couple of days ago. But anyway, it's interesting that we're doing pretty good on lightning deaths. We've got 3 now in the country, and that's 3 too many. But I think typically we're at 8 or 9 by this time of the year. But this is the time of the year where lightning is such a big problem, and it's a very interesting sight to me. So that'll be my pick of the week. And Bill Murray, I'll let you take the floor. Go.
Thank you, James. Yeah, I thought I was going to see some lightning fatalities Saturday at the Botanical Gardens in Birmingham. I let a storm sneak up on me, and that first lightning crack was within 2 miles, and it was like, oh, good gracious, this was not smart. But I could not get the car fast enough, but I did not see one other person in that entire venue who even seemed to be concerned that it was thundering or lightning. And so we were at dinner last Thursday night when a storm came up, and there were a bunch of people on the patio. So I told the Mater D, I said, you're going to have to get these people off the patio. He said, I don't think it's going to rain much. I'm not worried about the rain. I'm worried about the lightning. The rain's going to follow. And he said, I looked and my app says it's not going to rain. That's the exact words he said to me. So I showed him radar scope and he went, uh-oh, your app's better than my app. And he quickly cleared the patio. Now, I don't remember, because I'm like Ron Burgundy here. I must not have been paying attention. Who's done Pics of the Week already? Kim, you've done it, right?
Good.
Jen's
Nate?
turn.
Jen's
I haven't done it, but let
Jen
Jen go first.
All right. So today we released our overview of the Tuscaloosa Birmingham EF4. It is the biggest endeavor that we've ever taken on, and the overview is free. We are then going to, over the next 2 weeks, button up. We've done a lot of the research. We have to button up our writing and reviewing and analyzing how everything looks with the pictures and maps. We're going to do 10 summaries just on Tuscaloosa, Birmingham. So we've broken it up. And so the overview shows you all the different segments that we've taken. I'm not sure even how to explain it. Emotionally, I am excited to share this story, but I've found myself boohooing a couple of times with some of these stories, and I write them and then I'll read them back to Nick and Nelson. So as we're doing our review, I read everything out loud, because you can hear your boo-boos more if you read it out loud. And so I read it through, and then I can't get through the stories because I'm boohooing. We have some very powerful stories here, and it's not, the damage was amazing, obviously, with something like this. But it's these personal stories are absolutely amazing. And some of them are just heart-wrenching. And so we try to balance everything. And the 10 summaries are going to be on our premium. So if you have to read them if you're a member, we're hoping we can get to the point where we can release some of these for small periods for free, like a little tease. We're trying to get to that point with our website. But if you would like to read them, it's only $2.95 per month. I cannot express how much time these guys have spent with me putting this together. Just on this set of summaries, hundreds of hours already. I mean, 100 hours probably. I kept saying it's going to be a couple of weeks, and now it's been 7. We're underestimating how long it takes, but we don't want to get it wrong. Bill Curtis was amazing because he said that you want to get the history right. You want to tell the story and you want to have the facts. And so we're not trying to be dramatic in our retelling of these stories. There's enough drama just because it happened. So we just try to tell what happened. And these are real people. And I got a chance to talk to Willie Fort from Rosedale Court, and he was there on the ground that day. And I could have talked to him all day. And I said, I would like to come down and meet you. And I'd like to meet you for barbecue, because I fell in love with him. He goes, kept going, let me tell you something. You know, this is our community. Let me tell you something. This is our community. And so that's what he wanted me to take away from that. And these stories are amazing. And how people just, it happened and it was their community and they cleaned it up along the whole path. And these have been the stories every time we tell these stories, but it's been something different here with these type of stories. So the overview will give you a little kind of a taste of where we're going for with this. And I hope you guys get a lot out of it. I really do.
We will, that for sure, Jen. Thank you. Thank you for getting Bill tonight. He was one of my favorite guests of all time. And and it wasn't all just weather related for sure, but thank you for making that happen. So Nate, did we cover you?
Not yet.
Good. Well,
pick of the week this week is a little kerfuffle over Apple's built-in weather app. And somebody figured out that it would never tell you that the temperature was 69 degrees. Initially, people thought that might be a little bit of censorship. And then they realized, no, it'll never tell you 71 or 65 or a host of other numbers. Somebody's figured out that it looks like there's a unit issue, except it's not a unit issue. It's more of a dropping significant figures too early issue. Just happens to manifest itself in they're carrying whole degrees in Celsius, and then they're converting to Fahrenheit if that's what your phone is set to display. And if you do that, you'll never get a Celsius, whole number Celsius temperature that will convert to 69 degrees or some of these other numbers as a result of that. So that's one of the more interesting bugs that I think you'll find on the internet on an Apple device. something that kind of fun. We're talking about NWA, and Kim brought it up, and I did want to, mention that, we're a little bit more than a month out from Tulsa. We're still planning on a hybrid meeting. There will be, some folks already planning on being there in person, and other folks planning on joining us virtually, much like we did last year. Really worked a lot of credit to Sean Cable and Wendy Sellers, who are meeting co-chairs this year, for coming up with ways to really make this be one meeting and not, there's an in-person meeting happening and then there's a virtual meeting happening, and they're happening at the same time, but they're really two different things. We're really trying to make this a cohesive experience, no matter how you're joining us for this year. And really excited to have that. We'll have some speakers in person. We'll have some speakers doing remote. We'll be releasing our keynote addresses here in the next few days, and some of these are going to blow you away. I'm really excited. Especially there's one in particular, but I think they're all our keynotes and invited talks this year. Really, really top notch, and looking forward to sharing those with you in the next week or so. So we button up getting bios and pictures and all that kind of stuff for everybody, and we'll share that here with you shortly. And really excited about hopefully seeing some folks in Tulsa if conditions allow. At this point, we're still planning on having that in-person meeting, the in-person portion of it anyway. And hopefully things will hold and things will maybe level out, and we can go on with as we were planning. I will say this: the room that we're in, we talk a lot about ventilation being really important in terms of if you're in a room, how frequently the air is circulating. Has never really been a problem in most conference rooms. If you've been to any sort of weather conference, these big rooms, these big ballrooms, they get very cold and there's a lot of wind. Well, the room that we're meeting in the Hyatt Regency in Tulsa, the staff calls it the wind tunnel because the air filtering, and that just, in any other year, that would be a negative. But this year, that's a huge positive. So, if you are planning on coming, hopefully, you're able to join us. And that's one thing working in our favor. And I think we'll have enough space to spread folks out as much as they want, based on the number of people the break that we're getting right now, and the size of the room and everything is such that people will be able to space out if they want to. And, if you want to wear a mask, bring a mask. And, at this point, that's not required. But, hopefully we'll be able to see some folks in person in Tulsa. It will be nice to be in person with as many folks as are comfortable to be there. If you're not comfortable, that's okay too. We still want you as part of the meeting, and we'll do everything we can to make it a sort of cohesive experience. And that goes both ways, right? It's taking the in-person stuff and taking it to the virtual, but it's also taking all the conversations that happened in Hoover and elsewhere and bringing those into the meeting space in person too. That sort of cuts both ways, and we're looking forward to really doing some really cool stuff. Hopefully groundbreaking stuff to make it a really great meeting.
That's awesome. Thanks for that NWA update, and thank you for your service as the NWA president this year, Nate. I know it goes by really quickly, but
yes,
Nate,
yes, it does.
We're really sad to hear that you're going to take a sabbatical. We understand. We hope you'll come back real soon. You're a huge part of the show, and we don't want to be without you.
I appreciate that. I as I mentioned in the email, internally, a few weeks ago, we had our trip to Texas actually get cut short for reasons. Everybody's fine. There's nothing wrong. We had to come back early, and whatnot. But gearing up to teach in the fall, that's a Monday night class that doesn't end until almost 9:00 Eastern time. And so, between that and still, winding down NWA, and then my travel schedule for work probably picking back up, it just felt like the right time to, instead of just constantly, plus it just sort of hits right at bedtime. I'm, sort of coming in right, at the gate here, trying to get the 2-year-old to sleep. It felt like instead of just hogging a chair, as I've done for the last 9 years, and I've had a lot of benefited from it and grown a lot and learned a lot and had a lot, wanted to open that up to give you the opportunity to let somebody else, benefit and take advantage of that. And at least for the next few months, if not, going beyond that. But I'll be around. Don't worry. You can't get rid of me that easily. But it's been a privilege. it's been a privilege to be a part of the show. I went back and looked, and it was 9 years and like 2 weeks or something. Remarkably, close to that 9-year mark. And it's, lots happened to me personally, lots happened in our weather world, our weather enterprise. And I think WeatherBrains has been a huge part of a lot of these things in either having guests and having them come on and speak their minds freely, Daryl Hertzman, or other folks, other conversations we've had. This really is a fantastic program to, bring people together and have some conversations, occasionally some, arguments and disagreements, but we always do it, coolly and civilly, and have appreciated the opportunity to be a part of it. And, we'll see how things go, in the new year and beyond. But, so it just didn't feel right to just basically call out for the next 6 months, and prevent somebody else potentially from joining the show down the road. So look forward to seeing y'all around. I'll of course be listening, and I'll critique from time to time, send you an email. I'm going to stay on the email list because I want to stay plugged in.
Yeah, good. Fill out one of those iTunes reviews for us, Eric.
That's right. Listener survey, and I think you can still do that on the website somewhere.
Yeah, they always come in. The show should be limited to 30 minutes. We passed that a long time ago. But we'll always have a seat warm for you, Nate. Thank you for everything you've done. Great friend and great part of the show. And Troy, did we cover your pick of the week?
Yeah, we did that.
Okay, so you're
bringing the Weather Service IT issues to the forefront a little bit.
And I was going to update you on that because on show 818 in just a few weeks on September 13th, we'll have Michelle Minnelli and Andrea Blystein talking about just that, Nate. So that'll be a good opportunity. Next week, or this week, which will actually be Thursday night, at 8 o'clock Central Time, we'll be talking to Curtis Walker at NCAR about weather and autonomous vehicles. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And then Dr. Jonathan Martin is going to join us on August 2nd, the next regular Monday night show, and talk about his book on Reginald Sutcliffe. So those are two shows that are coming up here in the next couple of weeks. I will be on vacation next week, as James will too. So that's part of why the show will be Thursday night. But any other business, Troy, before we adjourn?
I say, sir, with a second, that we should adjourn.
10:59. Did you like? We're close here to my pumpkin time.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I hope you appreciated that waffle maker limerick there. That was a really
no, that was good. Awesome. That was good. And they actually done that. They actually have that back now. Not as if I need that. Okay.
Blame it on COVID.
Yeah, there you go.
It's you're the freshman 15, the COVID-19, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
And that's being generous, Nate. Yeah. But anyway, WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast. It's all about weather. This is just one of our more fun shows. We've got 808 other beautiful ones that are in the can. And a lot of plans coming up with a new website, new listener survey, one that's actually relevant, and a lot of other fun things. But until we do the show Thursday night, I'm guest booking officer Bill Murray, wishing you all a happy week and telling you to keep an eye to the sky because you'll always have something fun to look at. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Special thanks again, Jen. Special thanks,
that was
Jen.
amazing.
That was it was wonderful.
That was magical.
If you really want somebody, just put Jen up to it.
Fun. Yeah.
No kidding.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Have
a great week.
Bye.
And the show is over. That was fun having Bill Curtis on tonight. That was kind of like awesome. But that was a great show. Can't wait to go back and listen to it this week driving around. But listen, I got to go to the weather segment back here. Thank you guys for being with us. We've got a special this week. Let me see what night. I want to say it's Thursday night because I'll be off next week. Yes, a Thursday night special. So we'll be back